my name is Arlena, and my speech today is going to be on maple syrup from sap to syrup. Young girls, Nevaeh and Destiny, happily run through the woods checking buckets that are nailed to trees. They hope to find their buckets full of a potion that they can cook down into a golden brew. If the weather is perfect, they will bring in a good haul of potion. But if the weather is bad, the pickings will be slim. Nevaeh and Destiny hope for warm days and freezing cold nights. This is the story of turning sap into maple syrup. Maple trees release sap at the end of every winter. The sap is then collected by maple syrup enthusiasts from the northern states of North America. From there, these people spend long days of cooking down the sap until it turns into a caramel-colored sweet maple syrup. Today, I will be talking about the phenomenon that happens when a tree releases its sap, how the sap gets sweet, and all the hard work and patience it takes to turn the sap into maple syrup. According to the Indiana DNR, maple trees go through a process throughout the year that enables them to produce nutrients for growth, store the nutrients for sustainability, and then release them into a liquid form known as sap. In their book titled The Maple Syrup Book, authors Eagleson and Hosner explain that the first part of the process for the maple tree is to produce starchy nutrients for its growth. Cells of the maple tree produce a nutrient-rich water between the months of May and September. This nutrient-rich water consists of a starchy concoction of amino acids, phenolic compounds, organic acids, and traces of vitamins and minerals, including potassium and calcium. This nutrient-rich water-based concoction is known as the tree's sap. According to Eagleson and Hosner, the second step in the process involves the tree storing its nutrients to sustain itself during the winter months. In order for maple trees to produce sap viable for making syrup, the trees must be in a state that experiences cold winter months. Only the northern United States and Canada have the perfect temperatures for maple trees to produce the right sap for making syrup. The Indiana Department of Natural Resources tells us that the last step in the process involves the tree releasing its sap. Maple trees release their sap when temperatures fluctuate above freezing by day and below freezing by night. This usually occurs during the months of February and March. During this time, maple enthusiasts put tappers into the maple trees, hang buckets under them, and wait for the sap to fill their buckets. Maple trees have an enzyme, just like humans do, that breaks down starch down into sugar. This enzyme enables the sap to become sweet. The Indiana DNR website explains that in order to get a sugar-based sap, the starchy nutrients of the tree must break down into glucose. When temperatures are below freezing at night and around 40 degrees during the day, an enzyme in the maple tree breaks down the tree's starch into sugar that passes into the sap. The rising temperatures during the day also cause pressure in the tree, which contributes to the releasing of its sap. According to an article on the Naked Scientist website, human saliva also has an enzyme that breaks down into sugar. Human saliva has an enzyme called amylase. It's called amylase. Amylase breaks down starches into simpler sugars to help the human body digest food. Human bodies require enzymes to aid in digestion, just as maple trees require enzymes to aid in releasing of the nutrients that they retain. Just like a tree has enzymes to break its starch down into sugar, we also have an enzyme in our saliva called amylase that does the same thing. Amylase breaks down starches into simpler sugars to help our bodies digest food. A fun way that you can experience this for yourself is to take half a slice of bread and chew it and chew it and chew it. You will notice how the taste of the bread changes as it gets sweeter and sweeter. This is the amylase enzyme in your saliva breaking down the starch and turning it into glucose. In the same way, the enzyme in a maple tree turns the starch to sugar and makes for a sweet sap that we then turn into delicious syrup. The next step in the process is for the sap from the tree to get converted into syrup. A sugar shack is a structure used when cooking sap down into syrup. Buckets of sap is gathered from the trees. Sap is collected from the buckets under the trees and transferred into a large container to be taken to a sugar shack. As explained in the book Maple on Tap, making your own maple syrup, the final step involves cooking the sap down into syrup. The sap gets cooked down for many hours so that water can be evaporated from it. Once the majority of the water has been evaporated, what remains is a sweet, thick syrup. It takes 40 gallons of sap to yield a gallon of milk. It takes 40 gallons of sap to yield 1 gallon of maple syrup. To give a better picture of this, if you boil down a 20-ounce bottle of maple sap, you would end up with only 1 tablespoon of sweet maple syrup. Sap must be continuously monitored when it is cooking. If it gets cooked down too much, it will burn. If it burns, then the whole batch is ruined and there's no way of reversing it. In conclusion, maple trees need perfect temperatures to produce and release their sap. A perfect science of enzymes at work, breaking down starch into sugar is part of the process, just like in the human body. A lot of work and patience goes into the 2-month sap producing period. Maple syrup enthusiasts work daily, checking for sap and cooking it down into syrup. Monitoring the cooking process is an important part of the syrup making. If the entire process is done correctly, the yield is a sweet liquid gold to be enjoyed by all.